Hey everyone, my name is Ron L. James, and I wanted to come to you and share a story today. But before I do, it's about a woman who gave it her all. It's about all of the mothers who are out there, and I'd like to share a Mother's Day celebration with all of you because you are amazing. Mothers, listen to this story and tune in. There was a time in my life where I was walking around the streets aimlessly, and I remembered there was this poem that this woman shared with me. And it went something like this: Good, better, best, may you never rest until the good gets better and the better best. Now, the woman that had shared that with me just so happened to be my mother, and her name was Mimi. Mimi was the type of individual who would share stories and insights with everyone that she met. She was a woman that gave it her all. She shared this poem with me from a young boy up, as far back as I can remember. Now, it was during this particular time that I was walking around the streets aimlessly with nowhere to go that the poem started to move me back to my home. It was driving me and compelling me to get back to where things started from. Home, where mothers do their best work. So here it was. I got to the doorstep of my mother's house. Now I need to explain the state of mind that I was in at this particular time. You see, I had suffered from a serious drug addiction. I also lived homeless at this time. And living homeless, I mean living on the streets, eating out of garbage cans, sleeping in dumpsters, sleeping in abandoned cars, sleeping on the street, abandoned homes. That was the lifestyle that I was living, that I chose to live. So here I was, being motivated by my mother's poem to get back home. Now, I share some of these stories in a movie that was actually done on my life story, and the movie was titled Choices. And in the movie Choices, one of the things that happens is the poem Good, Better, Best, may you never rest until the good gets better and the better best, is a poem that was meant specifically for me, but it is really meant for everyone. So here we go. I'm at the doorstep. I'm at the doorstep, and I get up to the door and I knock. And as I knock, no one answers. So I kind of get depressed and I start to leave. I lose hope. But as I turn away, I look down at the doorknob, and the doorknob slowly turns. The door cracks open, and there, right in front of me, is my loving mother. And she's like, "Oh, Ronnie, look at you." Her face was in despair. Her voice, I could hear it. And she says, "Son, come on in." Now, what took my mother a long time to get to the door was that she was in the kitchen cooking. See, my mother was from Atlanta, Georgia, and she could burn. And she was making fried chicken. Now, I'm sure all of you know what fried chicken smells like. So there I was, and when I walked through the door, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I couldn't wait to get some of my mother's home cooking. So I'm invited in, and I sit down at the table. And after eating, my stomach starts to work on the food, and I'm already exhausted. You see, I go 4, 5, 6 days without even eating, without washing my body. And the food was taking over me, and I started to nod at the table. And my mother, she reaches over and she taps me on my arm, and she's like, Ronnie, baby." And I'm like, "Yeah, Mom." And she's like, son, please, with a plea in her voice, go upstairs, get out of those clothes, and go get a shower and get some rest. And I said, okay, Mom, I will. And as I go up to the steps, and I'm at the top of the stairs, I'm exhausted. And I get in that nice hot shower, and the water was beating on me, and it was feeling good. And the only thing I could think about was getting some rest. However, I need to share something with you at this point. You see, my mother suffered from rheumatoid arthritis. You know, the crippling kind. And she was the type of woman that would press through any and every situation and circumstance. Nothing was too much for my mother. And she pressed through every turn of event that I at least brought into her life. So here it was. I took this hot shower, and I'm almost embarrassed. I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed to share with you that after the hot water cleaned my body and the scum and dirt and filth that rinsed off of me clogged my mother's drain. And what do? I leave that mess, that filth there behind for my mother to clean. And I go and get in my mother's bed. Now, my mother had a king-size bed, and I stretched out, and when I got in the bed, and when I got in her bed, I passed out. But something happened. The sun's rays were beaming in my mother's window. And the heat of the sun became an annoyance. And as I looked up, something was on the nightstand, on her nightstand, and it was sparkling and it was glittering. And as I looked up to see what it was, there on my mother's nightstand was her wedding band and her diamond engagement ring. The only thing she had left from a 25-year broken marriage with my father. Well, I had one thing on my mind, and that was to continue living in the madness that I was living in. But I had no money. But I had my answer. So I grabbed those rings, I stuffed them in my pocket, and I headed down the steps on my way out the door. And on my way out, my mother's like, Ronnie, baby, son. I'm like, Mom, I'll be back. Now, my mother had been in the kitchen again, preparing a meal fit for a king. But I wanted nothing to do with that. And I turned and ran out the door, and I took her rings to a pawn shop, and I got $72 or $74. To this day, I don't remember. But what I do remember is I seemingly burned the existence of the one lifeline of the person who cared about me, my mother. Now, my whole life revolved around one thing, and that was me. I outline a lot of this in my book, Choices, and in another book that I published called Living in Your Next Choice. And both of these books represent my life, how I used to live, and how things turned around and there was a transformation and how I live today. But back to the story. I need you to understand something. About 2 weeks went by, and I was doing the same old thing. They say if you do the same old thing, you kind of get the same results. And that's exactly right. So here I am living in the streets again, suffering from a drug addiction, taking all the money that I got from the pawn shop, $72 or $74, and I took that money and it went up in smoke with drugs. You see, I suffered from heroin addiction, crack cocaine, alcoholism, and I didn't care about anybody else. It was about me, myself, and I. Well, 2 weeks went by, and here I am, hearing this poem, and it's echoing in my spirit again. Good, better, best. May you never rest until the good gets better and the better best. Well, it just so happens there was nothing good about what I did. There was nothing best about what I did. Yet, the poem drove me back to my mother's doorstep. And when I got there, now I'm dealing with the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt that's associated with doing such a vile thing to somebody who really cares about you. Listen, the woman that birthed me, who fed me, who clothed me, who rocked me, who cradled me, who nurtured me, who protected me, I just robbed. I'm at the doorstep and I knock on the door again. Only this time, the door swings wide open and my mother, she lunges out and she wraps her arms around me. And then she hits me with the 4-letter word. Ronnie, baby, I love you. And it felt good to be loved. You see, people wouldn't even look at me. No one would give me eye contact, let alone even touch me. My lifestyle was out of control. So much so that I ended up spending 25 years of my life going in and out and in and out of prison. Yes, I was a repeat offender of the worst kind. So here it is. My mother says, baby, come on in, just like before. And as I crossed the threshold into my mother's home, I'm thinking, maybe she doesn't know that the rings are missing. Or maybe she won't even say anything. So I walk behind her. Now you need to understand, my mother was a short woman. And as I followed her to through the kitchen, you need to understand, my mother was a short woman. And as I followed her into the kitchen, she stops dead in her track. And she spins around and she looks me dead in my eyes. And she says, Ronnie, baby, son, have you seen my rings? And all I could do was drop my head. Well, my mother, prodigal mother, takes both of her hands, places them on my chin, lifts my head up as if to make me proud. And she says, Ronnie, baby, son, it's okay. I knew you took them. Are you serious? I stop and I look at the door and I had to leave because what my mother said next crushed me. She said, Ronnie, baby, son, it's okay. I knew you took them. You must have needed them more than me. Wow. You see, my mother gave it her all, and her all was her allegiance to me, her laughter and optimism that no matter what, I still was her son, and her love. She gave me those things. She gave me her all. Hey, mothers, I know some of you are out there and you have gone through different challenges with your children. I know that you have gone through different circumstances with your households. I know that there's been all kinds of trials and tribulations that have come your way. Yet, you continue to give it your all. Moms, this day, this Mother's Day, is a celebration for each and every one of you because you give it your all. 365 days a year, you're there giving it your all. So this day, we would like to share with you that you are amazing. And we, as children and family members and husbands and friends, we love you. Thank you.